It's time for us to get to work. The fastest way to forget is to freeze. Warning: this transmission will unmask stagnation. Yeah. You might think you're waiting on clarity. You might call it processing or praying it through. But the real infection isn't confusing, it's freezing your spiritual authorship. Side effects may include emotional paralysis disguised as discernment, chronic overthinking at the doorstep of movement, and resenting the lack of momentum you refused to create. If these symptoms rise, you are not cautious. You're calcifying. Movement isn't a preference, it's a protocol for remembrance. Welcome to Raw for Epoch 2, day 124. You didn't forget who you are because you drifted. You forgot who you are because you froze. Spiritual identity isn't held in memory, it is held in motion. And every second you stay stuck, you teach your spirit to mistrust its own voice. Today, we don't just break the freeze, we thaw remembrance back into movement. Here's our concept overview. Freeze. Freeze is spiritual amnesia. Here's what you'll learn. Why spiritual freezing accelerates memory decay faster than sin. Damn. How consciousness collapses when motion dies. Why frozen souls fabricate false doctrines to justify stasis. How remembrance demands motion even when emotion resists. That was me this morning. Oof. I wanted to sleep in. Not even gonna lie. And why faith isn't proven in comfort, it's sealed in collision. Here's our visual metaphor for the day. We call this the frozen river. Immerse yourself with me. Close your eyes if it makes you feel a bit better. And imagine a mighty river, once roaring, cutting through rock, moving sediment, feeding life. Can you see it? Now imagine it frozen solid. At first glance, it seems majestic, still seems powerful. But underneath the surface, death has begun. Stagnation kills faster than drought, because at least drought triggers desperation for movement. Freeze seduces you into believing you're still alive, while your spirit decays in stillness. That is what freezing your will does. That is what spiritual pause pretends to protect. Here's my personal perspective, the spiritual autopsy. I ask you, who hit your soul? Now, yesterday morning, after we closed our last scroll, I passed a dead raccoon in the middle of the road. And these things hurt me these days more than I care to admit or can even express out loud. But the body was stretched all the way out, not like curled up, not sunken in. It was stretched, extended. There was blood beneath it, eyes closed, but still holding life. And even with all that visual, it was the mouth that stopped me. Wide open. I mean, wide open. And I started wondering, yo, did it see it coming? Did it have just enough time to feel the fear of the impact, but not enough time to move? Or worse, did it lie there after impact, eyes fading, mouth stretching, grasping for one more breath, not gasping, grasping? Not because it would live, but because maybe it hoped somebody would stop. Maybe it hoped somebody would see it trying. And then I thought about the driver. Did they try to swerve? Did they even notice? And if they did they feel remorse? Or were they just like, damn, oh well. And then they drove on, forgetting they'd taken a life before the next red light. It's a life. I know it's a raccoon, but it's a life. But that's when it hit me. That might be our spirit. Hit, boom, mid-motion, laid out. Not dead, but forgotten. You are breathing. You are moving. But there's a part of you wide-mouthed right now, grasping, not just for air, but for authorship, for remembrance, for one more second of, thank you, God, I'm alive today. I am still here. And you're driving by it every day. So I have to ask, who hit your soul? And worse, are you the one who left it there? Is your spirit laid out behind you, hoping for a resurrection you stop believing in? Do you have remorse? Not just for the final breath, but for this one, for the next one, and for the 1,000 you'll take today while a part of you bleeds beneath them? Or will you stretch them? Will you fight for air, even if it's futile? Even if it hurts? Why? Because your spirit deserves it. Who hit your soul? Can you feel it grasping? Because the fastest way to forget is to freeze and never return back to the scene of the impact. Let me pause and reflect real quick, because I also want to get into some specifics around the freezing for the physical. I referenced this the other day, but I want to just share briefly that I had a moment this morning. I froze right on the edge of my bed. And your mind starts to, all the positivity you go through, all the spirited days, all the great things, all the remembrance of positivity and beauty and bliss and God and faith and honor and loyalty and the wife and the kids and the money and the things you buy and the experiences you have. And then sometimes you're just like, man, you could be doing great things and still freeze. You could be trying really hard and still be frozen. And you could also not be trying at all. And like the river, man, there's an undercurrent. There's something waiting. You need to like have some sort of explosion and let the water flow again. These things, that's why I had to think about the raccoon. It's an animal. It's roadkill, but it's not. It's God. It's life. Everything that breathes is life. You hit it and you walk by it. These type of the subconscious things, the significance and why it made me reflect, and I journaled this and turned this into today's episode. Like, did you really, something hit your soul? That's the only thing I could think of about why we stopped, why we paused, and how we froze. Something hit you massively hard and you just stopped. Forget about why for a moment. How about you just acknowledge that you are frozen, moving and going nowhere? And in that, you're missing life. You're missing the breath. You're missing the beauty. And you're going right by it every day. If you can think about that, does that not inflict massive pain into your soul? Have you forgotten your soul? Have you forgotten who you are? All right. I want to get into the physical because I read something the other day that struck me hard. Yo, hard. Like, hard. Lack of physical movement is effectively slow suicide. When you stop moving your body starts sending internal shutdown signals. Do you hear me? Your muscles weaken, your organs downregulate, your systems atrophy. A body unused collapses itself, not because it's evil, but because it no longer sees reason to persist. Now extend that same logic beyond the flesh. If your environment, your relationships, your habits, your mind are all stagnant, you aren't just pausing. You are regressing. You are freezing old behaviors you already outgrew and pretending you are reflecting. Oh, look at that. Those are some of my canned sound bites. I usually turn those off. I didn't press that button. That was the ghosts down at Cliche Jeff's realm. Okay, you're freezing your behaviors you already outgrew, right? You're pretending you're reflecting when you're really retreating into spiritual paralysis. Let me be abundantly clear, massively clear. Life doesn't honor stasis. It keeps moving without you. The collective flow insists forward, and the more you freeze, the further back you fall. Even your biology responds. Shrinking posture, slumped shoulders, dragged feet. Hormones fade, testosterone crashes. I'm telling you, you don't just freeze, you fall behind the divine order and your energy wears it. Stagnation isn't safety, it is surrender. And life, the system, the current, the kingdom insists forward whether you participate or not. The question isn't whether motion happens, it's whether you rise with it or beneath it. The system realities, man. I'm sure we've all been in situations where you look at somebody, God bless, I'm not judging, but you can feel it. And we're quick to judge, we're quick to assess and evaluate and point fingers. But forget about, as regular people, witnessing other regular people and having that judgment. And I'm not judging you for judging, whatever. Firstly, the collective consciousness. God has to satisfy the entirety of the world. Creator, universe, laws of life. You understand? So don't be selfish. I know you're all self-centered. I know when you think about life, you can only see you. That's all right. There's billions of, not just, that's why the raccoon is important. You think God is just worrying about living, breathing humans. But there's life everywhere. Consciousness exists everywhere. The collective is always collectively moving. And we focus so heavily on everybody who's not moving and on the people who are creating these sort of difficult environments that we forget that the people who move heavy move the masses with them. I was reading something about masculinity and about the sort of evolution of men and how one man, one powerful man, can impregnate hundreds of women and in that way keep the process of life going. And how women naturally seek stronger men for genes, genetic. I'm just simply saying this. The way things are constructed, right? One man can birth hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children. One man. One man, one woman can start a movement that will move millions. So stop worrying about who's not moving. The collective has to move anyway, and somebody's going to be strong enough to impregnate the world in a way that you're going to be forced to move with it. And you'll get the residual, you'll get the crumbs. Because you couldn't move yourself at minimum, and you were too selfish to understand God is moving everything. Call it what you want. I digress. It's not dogmatic. You know how I am already if you follow me enough. God is everything. God is all. God is first for me. Does it have to be that way for you? It is for me. But because of the way I understand and believe, I know motion is happening. Motion is happening. But this reality too, that while motion is occurring, that you could freeze your soul. Why? Let's get into the system teaching. I think I sort of lost my point. I got tangential, but it's all good. Freeze-induced forgetting. Consciousness is a dynamic, not a static system. Consciousness is dynamic, not static. Consciousness thrives on feedback loops of action and recalibration. When movement halts, recalibration dies, and so does memory. That's how you forget who you are. That is how you forget what you were born to do, born to be. I had this very brief conversation. I was picking up my daughter from a sleepover, and the mother was talking about how she was in her backyard listening to the birds and just forgetting about everything. And she said, we can just kind of let everything go. And I said, oh, yes, you can just sort of release and not worrying about having to be. And she said something like, right, you can just be. Same difference. But memory, forgetting, you can't just be. Because you're so caught up in who you are being. You get what I'm trying to say to you, man? And because you're so caught up in who you're trying to be socially, to be accepted, to fit into standards and boxes, your memory, you're moving in a frozen, stasis, stagnant sort of way when you just repeat and there's no growth, right? When you're unspirited. Spirit retains identity through kinetic authorship. You don't think yourself into remembrance. You move yourself into remembrance. Spirit is a signal processor, not a data warehouse. Like the cloud or a big data center in IT driven. You don't just get to store up data in some kind of hard drive, right? And think all these things, and somehow you are all these things, although you are exactly who you think you are. You got to move. Moving is big because it's your proof. It's the action. It's the last piece in the creation loop. I feel it. I think it. I move it. And now I can remember who I am when I need to. When I'm on the edge of my bed, why am I getting up at 3 o'clock on a Sunday? I can remember because when I get to 421, woo, I love life. I love life anyway. I can love life when I'm tired, but what happened? I moved. And when I thought about stopping, I remembered day 124. Frozen souls fabricate new doctrines to justify immobility. Oh, baby. Phrases like waiting on confirmation, guarding my peace, and timing will tell are often survival scripts for fear. Yes. Scared by a dog. What's your excuse today? Why aren't you moving on a Sunday? Is it because your Saturday was too hard? Because your Friday was vicious and it ended that difficult work week you've been repeating for decades? At minimum, what did you expect? 422 on a Sunday, where you at? Stasis is subconscious sabotage disguised as safety. Stillness becomes a breeding ground for self-doubt, not discernment. The mind, we talk about seduction, will invent narratives to validate paralysis if left unchecked. This is why these days, it's funny that I do this, and I love doing this, but it's awfully difficult for me to try to get into a scenario where I'm trying to persuade and influence someone. The thinker, the prover. You've already thought it. You'll prove it to yourself. And you don't even hear the excuses anymore. That is now your proof. The excuse is the proof. You have excused yourself into a straight frozen, stagnant, stasis, paralyzed life. And somehow you believe that all the narratives you build around, if you, and I like to do this with your closest relationships. It's the easiest because you can remove judgment and just listen. Just listen. Listen to the conversations. They're saying this is, I start to feel like I'm you want to talk about losing your mind. I feel like life is like this big, it's not that it's deja vu. The way that relationships become predictable because of how predictable people are, because of how unaware they are of their predictability. Some people are complaining about the same things they've been complaining about for decades, dog. And the mind just keeps inventing new narratives, but it's along the same scale and spectrum. The same things have been happening to you. You're still broke. You're still broke financially because you're still broke spiritually because you're still broke with all your skill sets, your psychological processes. You haven't evolved. No wonder you're still broke. You be blaming inflation. Inflation has happened in your spirit, to our dollar, to our skill. Everything is exploding and expanding. Why I think I talk about collective consciousness. You stayed still while everything else moved. You're now outdated. That's why you're broke. You're in the same seat, punching the same clock, hitting the same keyboard, speaking the same speak, thinking the same thoughts, moving the same moves. Is that not madness? Do a time check. Get to like 43 like me, 44 this year, and start to think about how many years you've stacked of doing the same thing that gets you towards nothing. You have no remembrance. The only remembrance you have of possibly growing and evolving is the illusion and the thought and the fantasy and the seduction of thinking yourself into a great narrative and then finding all the reasons not to. Do you not realize that that's it's perpetuated and it becomes habitual and that's addicting? That you talk yourself into a hole to just like you dig yourself into a hole deep just to get yourself back to the surface to breathe. You don't want to get out of the hole, stand up straight, roll your fucking shoulders back, and walk with a little bit of pride? You're not tired of being like in the water, just head above and just floating and hoping that you'll reach the shore? Swim. All right, man. The mind is crazy. The mind is wild. And you're using that imagination to lock you down. Imagine that. Paralysis. And then in that way, too, you restrict your mind and your consciousness. When you don't surrender to the pain and the progress of growth, and you don't give yourself an idea to think about a way to narrative just infiniteness, your mind creates narratives to restrictive lifestyles. So in that way, too, you blind yourself. You blind the power of your free will and consciousness. You're wondering why you can't see things differently because you're still looking at it the same way. So your mind is proven to you over and over in different, see, I told you, see, I told you, see, I told you, see, I told you. Everybody's right. Nobody's wrong. How dare I have the audacity to tell you that you're wrong? You're absolutely right. Yup. Everything. Yup. The world hates you. Yup. Your boss is against you. Yup. There's an army of people just trying to destroy your life, and God is terrible. Okay. And when you look outside in the world and you pick up the paper or you scroll on your phone, man, it was after the raccoon, I was going to get a CAT scan, and there was an older gentleman. He sat next to me and he dropped his newspaper. And I used to read the newspaper growing up as a kid. It's one of the things I used to do with my grandmother. It made me think about my grandmother. But the smell of the newspaper, I was like, when he dropped it and I smelled it, I was like 6 years old. Point being, the mind, it can invent and imagine so many things. And left unchecked, it'll paralyze you. Remembrance demands collision with resistance. Faith without friction dies as fantasy. Ooh, damn. Let that hit your soul. Faith without friction dies as fantasy. What kind of fantasies have you lived over and over in your mind? You fantasize, you fantasize, you fantasize, you think and you see it, and you're sitting on your throne, and then you come back home to reality. No friction. True spiritual calibration demands dynamic interaction with the system of reality. You can't be static in your movements and expect a dynamic lifestyle. You got to be dynamic with the collective consciousness of the free will of the eternity of life, of the reality that's created. Stop making yourself, you're already limited. And then when you get to this finite, individual, selfish lifestyle of just thinking through, this is why we talk about a why. Everything got to be bigger than you because it is. And then it expands you to be bigger than who you already are. It takes your finiteness, it makes it more infinite. You become more dynamic. You become more open. You can think about what you do know and know that what you do know is only a teacher and a reminder for everything you do not know. You learn and gain wisdom to re-emphasize, 1, I have the potential. 2, this is dope. 3, I'm so much better. And 4, man, there's so much more to go. There's no way you can be, and as you're remembering, you're forgetting. That's another thing too, the way the mind works, right? As you're remembering, you're forgetting. There's retention rates. How much can you retain? Your ability to retain a lifestyle, a dynamic, beautiful, blissful, abundant lifestyle is to do as many blissful, abundant, dynamic things as possible, because as soon as you do them, you're forgetting. I've worked with people who they say it so confidently, sitting in the same seat. I remember this guy I worked with at I was there for a decade, where I really started to grow my career. He was sitting in the seat and he ran everything. I've forgotten more things than you can remember. Yeah, you're still in that seat. Forget them and remember yourself to stay right there. There's nothing cool about that, in my opinion. My opinion. But the point to drive home, the only way to keep some things and retain the ability to say, I'm going to be prosperous, I'm going to maintain an adventurous, dynamic, blissful, open, creative mindset, is to constantly move and calibrate. And then what you can remember is that I'm always moving. I'm always moving. I'm always moving. And when I move, lo and behold, every now and again, I get something that validates my movement. Because the same way I can validate and create narratives that this is not cool is the same way I can create narratives that this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. The way I can create narratives for lack and poverty, broke down, fear-derived consciousness is the way, I'll tell you like this. This is how my life works now. You might see this and think this is, what is this? What is the value in this? Just yesterday, 4:31 on a Sunday. Indulge me. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's my show. This is why I do it. You understand? That's not arrogance. That's confidence. I offer you that. So my wife and I are driving, and she decides she doesn't want to cook. I definitely didn't want to cook, so we're going to go get some food. There's a restaurant that we've been ordering from now for the last 6 to 8 weeks. It's like every other week now we seem to indulge in it. Great restaurant. It has a New York vibe to it in the country where we're at. So there's some emotional ties there. And the food is just good. The food's good. So we order the food. We get in the car together. She's driving. She likes to drive. That's a fight I gave up a long time ago. So she's in the driver's seat. I'm in the passenger seat. And it starts torrential downpour. Yo, it's like rain is so hard you can't see. We make moves. We get on the highway. And as we're getting on the highway, there's a merge. And she's like, Dan, there's 2 trucks there, but there's a lot of cars behind me. The merge allows you to go right to exit, and then you get on the merge on the left to keep proceeding forward to your destination. That would be to the left. So my wife says, I'm going to get behind this truck right away because I want to let other people behind me pass me. All right. She gets into the left. She's behind the truck, and then she's like, yo, I don't want to be behind these trucks. That's natural. So she waits. She gets into the left lane. As we proceed forward, we realize there's 3 trucks, and the third truck, the truck in front of the truck in front of the truck, is stopped completely. So we sort of rubberneck, and she's like, yo, this fucking truck is stopped. So I'm like, no shit. Yeah, the truck is stopped. And as we're seeing it, the truck stopped, we both kind of get pulled consciously to debris that's on the floor. We're like, oh, wow, it looks like we just witnessed real time an accident. Like the accident just occurred. Truck drivers, which is always scary to me. The truck driver's out on the highway in front of his truck, looking at it like, oh shit, truck, what did you just do? What happened? So as we're sort of looking and sort of reflecting real time, oh wow, this just happened. Thankfully, we can get around it now before traffic builds up. There was no sound, no indication, no nothing that anything just occurred. But my wife drives past the truck, past the debris, and then you start to hear like a... But there's also a sign that says grooved road. So my wife is like, yo, either this road is really grooved or I just caught a flat. And I'm like, nah, because I'm always positive. Not that it would be pessimistic. Nah, you're good. Just go. You start to feel it. You can feel the flapping now. As soon as we start to really feel the flapping, the warning sign goes off on her car. Pull over for roadside assistance. You have a run flat. Be very careful. Do not exceed 50 miles an hour. So let me just pause for a moment of human reality. It's raining massively hard. We're trying to go get food. Everybody's hungry. Kids are hungry. Wife is hungry. You understand? That adds dynamic. You just caught a flat. It's raining crazy. Naturally, you're heightened. You're angry. You're frustrated. You're upset. Why me? And as a couple who's been together for 25 years, this could go left real fast. But both of us, immediately, I could sense her energy. I'm sure she could sense my energy. We kick into gear like, all right, what's our next move? So she's like, yo, get it. I know where I'm at, but I don't know where I'm at. I've never really had to reverse to go back home, but we should go back home. So I'm like, yep, check. We should go back home. So I direct her. I'm like, I know where we're at. Get off here, go around, wrap around. And the short version of the really long story is that we got home very safely. The reality is that now there's a flat tire. Her tires are about $500, $550 per tire. So it's raining, you're hungry, you're not getting the food, the tires, you understand, you're nervous. And it's very easy to get excited emotionally in a fear-derived way. But we got calm, we got reflective. I helped navigate, I helped speak calm, I maintained her speed because we had to get back around the highway. You're gonna be fine, we talked through it. And when we pulled up, my wife was like, yo, think about this. I'm 43. We only got our license about 10 years ago. Oh, wow, I just got my first flat. Yep, you just got your first flat. Another reason to kind of get heightened. We pull up, we look at the tire, everything's good. We got into our garage. We give each other a hug. Yo, thank God we got home safe. We jump into another car. We get back on the road. We pick up our food. You see where I'm going with this? The beauty of life, the mindset that like, all right, this real bad thing happened. We have another car. We were able to get back home safely. We can proceed forward, make a phone call, pay the $500, figure out if we got to toll it or if we can actually keep it on the run flat to get it. Point is, we went from a difficult situation, danger could happen, to calming ourselves down, to getting ourselves home, to kicking into gear on how to find a solution. What's our next step? I don't got no time for, oh man, the flat, why me? Nope. My wife doesn't have time for that. Oh, no, we lock in. You're going to overlook that. This is not cool and won't sell t-shirts. I get it. That could be a week, 2 weeks worth of arguments. What if I didn't have the money to pay for the tire? What if I didn't have the money to pay for the tow if I needed it? What if I didn't have a phone to make a phone call? What if I didn't have roadside assistance? You see where I'm going? There's a lot of ways to think about this. A lot of ways to think about this. You don't have to think about freezing and regressing into something that's going to kill you over stress. You can choose to see the abundance. You know what I said to her when we were driving? I said, yo, good job. Thank you for maintaining composure. Thank you for maintaining your discipline. It was very easy to get heightened and upset. I could feel your frustration and sense your anger. And also, my wife has a thing with her car. She loves her car. My wife loves her. I had to get over this too. She's very particular about, and we both grew up very poor, and we have our little bit is a lot for us. It's not, we ain't the richest, we ain't the poorest. We got a little bit of a lot and a lot of a little bit. And she's very like, this is my car. I'm like, this is my car. This is my house, and this is my granite, and this is my floors, and this. And I'm like, yo, I love my house, my granite, my floors. But there's a big difference. So I had to appreciate, yo, I know what this means to you. I know what it means to you emotionally, because nobody wants to be in a situation where you got a flat. You think, oh, why did I have to drive at this time? Why did I have to? She did the right thing to go behind the truck. If she would have went in front of the trucks from the beginning, she probably could have avoided the accident. But it doesn't matter. It happened. Sometimes you catch a flat. So one of the things we said after we both agreed, we gave each other a dap. Yo, good job, a hug. We did good together. We got through it together. Thank you for being there for me. Thank you for being there for me. So she asked real quick, is this some sort of karma? Is this some sort of sign? I said, yeah, this is a sign. You're going to catch a flat sometimes in life. You're going to catch a flat. You had 3 other tires and the ability thank God we had the car we had that got us safe. But now that you got a flat, what do you got to do? I got to get you a new tire. You're in a little bit of pain because you put a little work in. You got to rest a little bit. I had I got back into saltwater, LMNT. You got to update your systems, update your habits, take a few vitamins, put a new tire on it. You're going to have a flat sometimes. Dynamic interaction with the system of reality. Life's not just working for you. It's working for everybody, including the raccoon we hit on the side of the road. You got to tie that back in, right? Ooh. All right. Your life is beautiful. Or not. It is for me. I choose to see it that way. There's consequences of inaction. We're talking about freezing. 4:41 on a Sunday. You'll confuse wisdom with withdrawal. You'll teach your soul to distrust movement. You'll manufacture false confirmations to stay still. You'll erode your own spiritual stamina. Oh, that doesn't hurt you. That hurts me. And worst of all, you'll forget how to hear yourself move and mistake the silence of your own stagnation for the silence of God. Let's check the chat and let that hit your soul. Your soul. That's how I feel. All right. Here's the how-to. You want to thaw the freeze. You're frozen. Your spirit is still. Who hit it? You got to make it move. The first thing you want to do to thaw the freeze is to start with micro move action. Pick one move so small it's impossible to justify not doing it. You can send the email, open the notebook, start the first rep. Episodes ago, do one push-up. Make a micro move, a really micro move that's so small that you're like, yo, okay, I can do this. That's how you start building remembrance. One small step for mankind, right? The second thing you want to do is, ooh, I'm feeling it today, baby. I almost sat down and went back to bed. Reframe friction as proof, not pause. Expect resistance not as a signal to stop, but as confirmation you're recalibrating your consciousness. So when you make a move, we talked about your mind. It'll create a narrative. It's going to give you a reason to stop. When you push past the reason to stop, you're changing consciousness. You're rewiring yourself, literally, neurologically, chemically, psychologically, in reality, real time. Now, you got to keep doing it to really believe. Like, belief doesn't happen in a day. Micro movement, you get some wins, you start believing in yourself. Sound logical? Cool. Then you go through a daily reboot ceremony. We're talking about throwing it out. Each morning, commit to one fresh obedience move before input overload begins. Treat it like a moment with, or like an appointment with remembrance itself. I don't know about you, but I wake up and I feel massive pressure. Just being connected to life, to God, to root, to source, to the infinite. Just understanding how consciousness works. When you lock in with your spirit and you wake up and you know that every breath given is a breath taken, the overload begins. And you know, and the overload is still like, yo, there's still some place I gotta be. There's still some places I gotta go. There's still some milestones I gotta hit. And I don't know when I'm gonna hit them, but I just know I cannot stop. And when you're in that mode and you're flowing and you lock in like that, you feel the overload. I can assure you, even if you're frozen, you wake up to an overload. It's just that you wake up to an overload to stay frozen. So if you can, before the weight of the world hits you, all right, let it be, just be, don't be. Before it starts to sap you of all of your isness, do something obedient. And it is as simple, I assure you, as pushing yourself out of the bed. Push yourself out of the bed before the overload hits. You teach and you train your consciousness to remember. And the more remembrance you have, okay? All right, it's phone tap time. The block is hot and the block is watching. This is our ARR audit remix, re-record, creation, covenant loop. You know we start with an audit. You got the call. The memory identity, which is a lot of the emotion. Ask yourself, audit, where did you stop moving even though you knew the next move? What spiritual signal froze inside of you? You know the next move. You know it. The whisper is there. Turn it into a roar. Be dynamic, don't be static. Then you want to remix the thought identity. You get the emotion, the memory, remembrance. Now you hit it with a new thought, right? Replace I'm waiting with I am already moving in remembrance. If you're going to talk yourself into something, talk yourself into something positive. We're almost there. You feel it, you think it, then what do you got to do? You re-record. You got to get into an action-driven identity move. Take one physical move today that reignites kinetic authorship. Small or large. You want to make it big? Go ahead. It doesn't matter. Motion reactivates memory. You need to remember who you are. And you can recalibrate who you remember being. You can literally change your consciousness, your wiring, your makeup, your identity. You have that authority, that free will, the authorship. These words are not just like, hey, they sound cool. No, it's significant. Pay attention to yourself. If you can't remember, not only have you forgotten, but you only remember what you have forgotten. And it is that you've forgotten who you are. The freeze wasn't protection. It was silent permission to forget who you were. Today, break the glacier. Remember through friction. Go through some pain. Move through resistance. Obey through impact. The spirit doesn't freeze. It flows. Move. You either own it or be owned by it. You either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.